Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we're talking about how catching the adventure bug can open the door to passion and purpose. Our guest is Jack Langton, an adventurer, storyteller, and founder of the HUMN Project. Jack grew up in Connecticut and is joining us today from Uganda, where he's traveling in search of powerful, unheard stories from around the world. 2 years ago, Jack set off on an 8,000-mile bike journey from London to Singapore. The experience changed his life. When he returned home, he realized that normal life no longer fit, and the HUMN Project was born. Its mission is simple: to share extraordinary human stories that would otherwise go untold. Jack is on the hero's journey, using adventure as a gateway to deeper connection and meaning. And I can't wait to share his story with you today. Jack, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I don't know that I've ever had somebody record with me from Southern Africa. So this is cool.
Yeah, it comes with its own challenges. You might hear a little bit. There's actually next to my apartment, there's a church here, and they do service at night a lot with live music. So if you hear that coming through on my end, that's why. I love it.
I love it. They like to celebrate. That's awesome. Yeah, so, I mean, your story is so cool. And just the fact that you're there now and, you're in the middle of this project. I can't wait to share this with listeners. I think let's just dive right in and start with essentially, what is the HUMN Project?
Yeah. So the HUMN Project is kind of this idea I had that, well, one, everyone has a story to tell, but two, there's so many incredible, unique kind of people, groups, just people doing things that I think deserve to have a story made about it. So I set out on this journey about 9 months ago to try to capture as many of those as I could. I started in the U.S., traveling around in the U.S. for the first 6 months. And then I always knew the goal was kind of for me to go abroad and find these stories in various countries. So I headed to East Africa at the end of February. I've spent a month in Kenya, a month in Tanzania, and now I'm in Uganda for a month. And then the last month of this kind of 4-month leg will be in Ethiopia. So it's going great. So many incredible people here that I've already met, incredible stories so far. And it's been an awesome journey, and I'm excited to see where it keeps going.
Yeah. And so you and I had a chance to talk before this. It was super fun kind of getting to know you because we have some connection points, both being from Connecticut and some common work ties and things. So it's really, really cool. And I feel like I just feel like I can really feel sort of your story and sort of the upbringing and going from corporate America to doing what you're doing today and really following your passion. And I just think that's so cool. And I can't wait to share more about that. And so I definitely want to get more into the stories that you're telling and hear about some of those. But honestly, before we do that, like this whole thing kind of started because you did this epic 8,000-mile bike trip from London to Singapore. So can we kind of go backwards a little bit and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So it was, we left about 2024 in April. It was me and my buddy from London to Istanbul. And then basically from Istanbul to Singapore, I was essentially on my own. So crossing Africa by myself. There's so many just amazing stories from it. But I think the Europe part, when there was two of us, that was a good little warm up for what would come in the rest of Asia there. So it kind of was a nice kind of lead into that Asia part. And I think about kind of the stories for me. The first one that comes to mind is I had just finished going across Turkey and Georgia. The plan was to take a boat across the Caspian Sea via Azerbaijan to Kazakhstan. However, the border to Azerbaijan has been, I think it's still closed. It was closed a couple of years ago from COVID. So I ended up having to take a flight from Tbilisi, Georgia to Aktau, which is the first basically city in Kazakhstan on the Caspian Sea. And it was one of those flights leave Georgia around 2 a.m., landed in Aktau around 4 a.m. And I'm setting up my bike in this airport. I had it in a box, putting it together, and I'm looking at the back wheel, and I'm noticing all these cracks in the back rim. And I'm like, and I just knew right away this was doomed. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, this is going to be an issue, because throughout Europe, there were plenty of bike shops, but I knew once I got to kind of the Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan area, the bike shops were going to become much more limited.
Yeah.
So right at that kind of 4 a.m. in the airport, I knew it was off for an interesting journey in Kazakhstan. But anyways, I was able to get the bike together, blow up the back tire in the airport. And I remember the sun's rising, kind of hobbling my way from the airport. There was one bike shop actually in this Aktau city, right on the Caspian Sea in Kazakhstan. And I slowly made my way there. I think it was about 20 miles. And I remember I just kind of rolled out my mat in front of this bike shop, and it didn't open until about 10 a.m. And I took a little bit of a nap, kind of waiting for the guys to show up so I could try to get a new tire, a new wheel, actually, not a new tire. Ended up, when they got there, of course, don't have the part. They're sending me all over this town. I'm running around this town looking for a bike market to try to buy the right tire. I go to this bike market. They give me a tire. I go back to the bike shop to get it put on. It doesn't fit. So I'm getting sent all over this town. My first experience in Kazakhstan. And I'm kind of I just knew I was in for a wild experience when I was going across there, but ended up figuring it out, which was great. Got a wheel on that didn't have enough spokes. I was looking for wheels that had 36 spokes so it could handle the of all my stuff on the back tires. They were able to end up putting a wheel with about 26 spokes. So they fitted that on, and I was able to kind of start my journey through the desert, which was the first 8 or 9 days across Kazakhstan and into Uzbekistan was just pretty much a desert for that time. But I was able to get on the road eventually around 4 p.m. that night. Now, I think the thing is, I completely, and this is kind of a theme of a lot of the bike trip, was a bit of a lack of planning going into it. So I knew I was crossing a desert, but I had no idea kind of how far the rest stops were going to be. What ended up being the case was there was rest stops probably every, let's say, 60 to 80 miles for these 9 to 8 days. So you basically had one chance to fill up on water, fill up on food. I wasn't carrying any cooking supplies or anything. So I was basically just buying a lot of bread and jelly, peanut butter if I could find it, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get a proper meal that night. But I didn't know that when I finally rolled out of this Aktau city with my new wheel. So I made it a little bit that first night. And the next day I'm in the middle of the desert for the first time, and I'm going, and it's the strongest wind I dealt with this entire trip. And I run out of water on the first day. Nice. And I'm just kind of I remember I made it to some type of like overpass or bridge, and I was able to sit underneath it. And I'm just kind of sitting there thinking to myself, like, what have I gotten myself into? I was not prepared for this journey in the desert. And kind of the theme throughout the bike trip was actually meeting someone, like people helping me out along the way. So these guys kind of found me just sitting there, and they handed me some, I believe it was horse milk. And I believe that was my first introduction to horse milk, because that's what they drink out there a lot of the time. And I don't know if I drank it again, but in that moment when I run out of water, in kind of my first day or two in Kazakhstan's desert, it tasted good for sure. But I definitely learned to carry enough water from then and there out for the next 8 or 9 days through that desert.
Oh my gosh, it's wild. And that's just like a couple first days of that portion of the trip.
Yeah, that's one day. And then this is about June and July. So it was averaging 100, a little over 100 during the day. Yeah. So it was quite hot. And I remember when I finally made it out of that desert, it was no shower for the last 8 or 9 days. And I reached this kind of gas station, and the attendants have me, they take out like a car wash hose. They have me get down into like my boxers, and they just spray me down.
Oh my gosh, that's
the greatest shower I've ever taken. So I'm somewhere out in the middle, kind of edge of the desert.
But you didn't ask. They just said, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm in like the edge of this city, and I've crossed into Uzbekistan now at this point, and they're spraying me down with a hose. And it was that one really stands out as like this just a weird memory from the bike trip.
That's so funny. So, I mean, you keep talking about like people, and I think that's like when I talk to people that have done, epic journeys in interesting places like this, like the people is something that always comes up. So, I mean, it sounds like you had a good experience with people. I'm just kind of envisioning that first kind of day with the bike shop stuff. Like, what was the language situation there?
Kazakhstan did not have much English. I would say for the most part, there was always someone somewhere in the vicinity that spoke English, but at that bike shop in Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan was probably one of the worst places for English, but there wasn't much English happening at that bike shop. It was a lot of kind of the worst way to have a conversation, which is Google Translate, holding it up to the other person and them having it back to you.
Got it.
But for the most part, there wasn't a ton of trouble with the English. I here and there, but was able to get by.
I just find that so interesting. Like, I think obviously that's probably one of the biggest hurdles that people overcome is like, if I'm in a foreign place, how am I going to communicate with the people? And, now we have technology, so that's so cool. But like, you had a pretty serious thing you had to deal with. Like, you had to get this bike fixed. Like, it was a real, turn of events, and it was a real like challenge that you had to go figure out. And I think that's like so much about adventure is, we end up in these unknown situations, and there's things that you have to figure out along the way, and you did it.
Yeah. One way you look, I was getting that tire fixed somehow, and it didn't end up being exactly the right tire, but we got there. Now I did kind of to the point of not having enough spokes. I was constantly, until I made it basically to India, I was constantly breaking spokes and kind of hobbling to the next major city and trying to get the spokes fixed again. And then they'd break. I wouldn't make it very far. It probably happened 6 or 7 times over the maybe about 2,500 miles through Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm kind of having some flashbacks because when I went to Everest Base Camp last year, my good friend Karen Dart came with us, and she's she's paralyzed from the chest down, and so she has like an adventure chair that she rides in, and we had just so many like different issues that happened with her bike along the way. And it was just like one thing after another, but like people just kept showing up and helping us. And yeah, it's so funny. I think anybody that's familiar with my podcast might remember that episode and all that. So it's wild, but you figure it out, and there's always somebody there to help you.
No, I would like the theme of it is people are incredible wherever you go, and they want to not only help you, they want to talk to you, maybe they want to take a picture with you, but like people were always trying to at least hand me some type of food and some type of water, or just wanted to say hi. Like, and the thing is, kind of the first question I always get asked is like, well, was there any bad experiences? And honestly, nothing. I didn't get robbed. I didn't get hit by a car. I didn't even have like, of course, every once in a while, there's a little bit of uncomfortable situation. I think when maybe there's too many people around you, or for me, what I found the most uncomfortable was often you're setting up the tent at night, and you kind of, once you get in that tent, it's like, well, whatever happens at this point is what happens, because you kind of can't control the situation anymore. Yeah. But no one ever even bothered me in the tent. So it was just like a recurring theme was just people going out of their way to be hospitable, but also just incredibly friendly the entire trip.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's so awesome. So this was 8,000 miles. One thing I don't know that I caught is how long did this whole trip take you?
5 months.
5 months.
5 months. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So it was kind of when it was 2 of us in Europe, we were going a bit slower, maybe stopping at the major cities, making sure we checked that box. And then once I got to Turkey, I really started opening up, probably averaging 70, 80 miles a day. And then across Kazakhstan, the stands, and basically India, I bopped it up to about 100 miles a day. So, but by that point, like you're 3 months into biking every day, your legs are feeling pretty good, even at 100 miles.
Yeah, a lot of conditioning. I mean, I feel like we probably could have split this into 2 episodes and done, just talked about this trip and then another one for the HUMN Project. But I want to try to get to both today. But I want to hear, like on this bike trip, like what were some of the like scenic highlights? Can you tell us a little bit about like the landscape that you experienced and the variation of landscapes that you experienced along the way?
Yeah, a couple things stick out from the year. I mean, there's, first of all, it's hard to pick a couple, but there's so many beautiful places when you go that far. But from the Europe kind of section, it's going down the Danube River, following the bike trail along the Danube River in Austria, and you're just kind of passing these giant castles up on the hills along the Danube River. That stands out as an incredible scenic part. And then Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, when you're, especially Kyrgyzstan, a lot of the biking in Kyrgyzstan was probably between 6,000 and 10,000 feet up. And you're passing by, people are living in yurts mainly up there. They're getting around on a horse, and it's incredibly green with rivers flowing all through it. And then in the distance around it is kind of these snow-capped mountains. And that's just your scene biking for days on end.
Wow.
They called it, I think they called it the Alps of the Stands, or there was something like that in the Pamir section. But that was for sure the most scenic part. And then even in India too, like once you got out of the cities, there was incredible kind of smaller mountains and hills and like almost jungly feel that you were crossing through, with actually pretty well paved roads for most of it. So yeah, those are the kind of the scenic parts that stand out to me when I think back on it.
Yeah. And when we spoke the other day, like you were kind of saying, like one of the unexpected things was that your kind of highlights in terms of like regions was, you called them the stands. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and fill people in that might not be familiar.
Yeah. And for me, it was really the people in the stands, because it was on a couple of occasions where I let myself sleep, or people invited me to sleep in their house, kind of these strangers that I met along the road. It happened twice. The first time, it was actually that day I was referencing earlier where I got hosed down. Right after that, I went to a restaurant and I was just kind of eating lunch on my own. And these guys next to me were, it was 2 guys and their son was the driver, but they were having a good time at lunch, taking vodka shots. But they got me over there to join them. So I ended up kind of joining in on the fun they were having. And this is the only time this happened. They convinced me to, I actually took the bike apart so we could fit it in their car. And they drove me back to their house, and we kind of had this makeshift, I think it was their family. I don't really know. There wasn't a lot of English being spoken, but they threw this kind of makeshift party at their house, and we're all eating and drinking. And it was just this incredible night. And then I ended up sleeping there. But the main guy who had the father, I guess, who had brought me back, he ended up, getting a little too drunk and went to bed early. So I just have this memory of like, it's me, the wife, and like the 4 kids, and we're sitting at their kitchen table eating ice cream, watching some local like reality TV game show that was playing in Kazakhstan. And then woke up in the morning, and they handed me kind of a giant loaf of bread wrapped up in a kind of a small blanket, and I was on my way. So it was just this like, I mean, it's hard to imagine. I know it happens at home in the US, but it's just, it's less common, I feel like, where people open their doors to a complete stranger just to stay in their house that they met on the road. Right. And that wasn't the only time it happened. It happened again in, I think, Uzbekistan, where I was looking for a place to stay, and I met this guy, and he actually ended up sleeping outside and gave me his bed in his house. And then in the morning, he had me come to this like breakfast with him and his friends. The local community. It was about 6 a.m. and there was like 70 guys at this breakfast, and they were going around introducing me to everyone. So it was really just that was really the only times I allowed myself, I think, to stay in strangers' houses, because sometimes it's just nice to have the tent after a long day of biking where you kind of can be on your own, or you're in a city and you've got an actual place to stay. But the hospitality there and kind of the generosity of those people in the stands is what stood out to me the most.
It's so awesome. And it does, like, we're so cautious here in the US, like we're taught as kids, like, don't talk to strangers. And, I think for good reason, but I think it's just so interesting when you go on an experience like that to be able to kind of compare and contrast and, challenge the sort of cultural norms that we live in, and then kind of reflect them on how the people do.
Yeah, for sure. Like wherever I went there, it was people. At some points, I'm almost ashamed to say it, like I was getting handed so much food and water at certain points that I couldn't even take it all. Like I had to leave some behind. I just couldn't hold it on my stuff. That's how people were constantly stopping their car and handing stuff out of it to me. Yeah. So it was just incredible.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. So like, I guess in the interest of time, do you have any kind of like overall reflections on that trip? Like what were some of the big takeaways that you had from that trip? Obviously the HUMN Project came out of that, but like sort of when you look back on it.
And I think it's this common theme that probably leads into HUMN Project. But I mean, when I went on the bike trip, I prepared a little bit, like I bought the stuff I needed to. But of course I was nervous, and it was just kind of this like mindset that, all right, I said I'm doing this thing and I'm going to go and do it. I set a date when I'm going to leave. I bought a ticket to London, and one way or another, I'm going to figure out how to make this work for the next 5 months. And I'm going to get on a bike. I'm going to pedal every day, and I'm just going to keep going. And I'm going to kind of get across Europe and Asia. So I think it was really like the takeaway is if you want to do something, you should be prepared as possible, but you're never going to be fully ready to go. And at some point, you just have to go, and you'll figure it out along the way.
You just have to go.
And I think that was kind of a big takeaway from the bike trip.
What was the inspiration for this trip? Like, what did life look like before you set out on this trip for you?
Yeah. So I don't know if I can point to one specific thing. I will say growing up, I had heard countless stories about my uncle who had biked across the United States and my dad who had biked from Maine to Florida. So I always had somewhere in the back of my head this idea probably about long bike trips. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a huge, like I grew up mountain biking here or there, but I was never like road biking wasn't my exercise. I wasn't an avid biker. So somewhere in my head, I had knew about those stories, and I think that definitely played a role in it. The other part of it was kind of in my early 20s, let's say 24, 25, I started to kind of actually travel. I had maybe left the country once or twice before then. And I loved it, but I just wanted to kind of merge physical activity with seeing more rural parts of countries and not just kind of the cities and the beaches that a lot of times people go to. So I knew I had this period I had 6 months, 5 months to do it. And I just somehow landed on, I can see the most, go the farthest, and be kind of out in the middle of nowhere if I'm on a bike. And it kind of just took off from there and ended up actually doing it.
Yeah. I mean, you're a big dreamer, but you took that dream and like put it into action. And that's like, there's two pieces there. There's like the big dream, but then there's actually like stepping out and crossing the threshold and actually doing it. And it sounds like you had some role models in your life that kind of, even if it was just the stories that you'd heard, that kind of told your brain like, hey, this is something that I can do. But I guess I'm just curious, like if you remember what that was like to sort of connect the big dream to actually like it being not just a dream, but like, this is something I can do.
I think for me, and this doesn't work for everyone, but once I have an idea, especially the bigger the idea it is, and I know I want to go forward with it, I start to just try to tell as many people as possible and almost put myself in this place where I can't. I mean, I could back out, but I know the more people I tell and the more people I talk about it with, the more likely it is I'm going to do it. So I think I had the idea of the bike trip first on my own, obviously, and then I just started saying it to all my friends, and they kind of looked at me like, "You sure you want to do that? Like, you sure that's a good idea?" Yeah. But I was going one way or another, and so I kind of just talked it into existence. I think. I
love that you kind of just built in some accountability by telling people. It's like now that I told all these people, I got to do it.
And it was very similar with HUMN Project as well, where kind of created the idea and then start saying it to close friends, parents, siblings. And then from there kind of snowballs. And at a certain point, you're leaving your job and you have to go one way or another.
Yeah. So I kind of love this part of your story because I remember being in corporate America, but you had this really cool opportunity because the company that you worked for gave you like essentially a 6-month sort of sabbatical where you were able to kind of go do this bike trip and have a job when you got back. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, it was PwC, and it's really a great program they have, to be honest. You can go 6 months for a year, 20% of your salary, and you have a job when you come back. So it was, I think everyone that works there should be taking that offer if they can.
Yeah, it's amazing. But when you got back, like, I'm just curious what that was like. I mean, you've just been on this amazing 5-month experience, like life changing, and now you're kind of back, doing corporate work again. I'm just curious what that was like for you.
It's funny because I think in my head, I remember thinking at the end of the bike trip, like, I'm ready to go back. I kind of did this major thing. I did this major bike trip, and now I'm ready to go back to work. And I won't have that kind of pull to do these crazy adventures anymore. I can kind of lock in and focus on my career. And that, I do think that was my intention, but that probably lasted a month at most, because I started work again in October, and by November, I was already kind of forming the outlines of what HUMN Project would be. So it probably was, you go from biking every day, you're seeing amazing places, you're meeting incredible people. Your focus is, how far am I going to bike? What is the route I'm going to take? Where am I going to sleep? And where am I going to eat? And then you go back to kind of doing this work that, I mean, while some people love it, it's just not meant for everyone, in my opinion. And I was sitting there, probably moving shapes around on a PowerPoint slide. And it just probably hit me that, like, I'm not ready to give into this kind of life yet. No matter what the pay is, and no matter kind of how comfortable that life was, I just wasn't ready to commit to that yet. And so that I probably was having those thoughts after the first few weeks back, and that ended up leading to where I am now.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
So
what happens next? I mean, 6 months later, you or 9 months, something like that, you leave your job, and what happens next?
Yeah. So I officially leave at the end of July to start this HUMN Project. I have, let's see. So I have as of, like, let's say January 1st, 2026, I have no background in interviewing or documentary work. Zero, had never done it before. It was simply an idea, and I was inspired by things like Vice Media or Project Happiness. And then I think in some point at the end of January, maybe end of February, 3 of us go down. I buy like the basic gear. I have a phone. 3 of us go down to Mexico to kind of make a story about this guy at a dog shelter we knew about that was running a dog shelter in Mexico, just to even kind of start to play with this idea. And we did like an interview, and we did the footage, and that was the first time. And I just held the camera. I didn't even do the interview. And that was the first time doing anything like this. Fast forward a couple months, I buy a little more gear, and I test out doing it on my own at a protest in Los Angeles, just to try to see what it's like to go up and ask people to kind of say why they're here, do some street interviews. I do that, and I go, you know what? I think this can work. I'm going to go ahead and do HUMN Project. But I make this, in hindsight, and probably what I knew at the time, the wrong decision, that I was just like, I'm not going to worry about practicing with a camera or practicing interviewing people for these last couple months of kind of my normal life in Los Angeles. I'm just going to go do these last few months in LA, enjoy the time with my friends, enjoy the time when I have an income, and I will figure out the camera part when I quit my job. So that leads to me leaving July 31st. By August 15th, I'm in South Dakota interviewing teams at an Indian horse race somewhere in South Dakota. And for the first time, kind of using the camera in a real setting, interviewing people and trying to make the first video. So that's August 15th. So again, I think that's the extreme side of you got, at some point, you just got to jump and you'll figure it out. I think I definitely probably should have done a little more prep and practice and known what I was doing and probably known what I was getting into. But the core belief I have today is, with enough effort and enough kind of putting enough time into something good will come out of it. What I thought when I left my job, HUMN Project would be, is already something different. wherever it ends up is going to be something different for sure. But my fundamental belief is that if you continue to put in a lot of work into something, some good will come of it, and somewhere you'll kind of catch that break you need. So that's kind of the guiding belief I still have, and what keeps me trying to find more interviews every day and keep making the videos. It's
so awesome. And honestly, like sometimes when you start digging into like the plan, and I am a planner, and I definitely have that, but sometimes like I can get stuck in analysis paralysis, and like I'll never actually start because I'm like there's too many details that I'm trying to. So there is something about just jumping in and figuring it out as you go that like keeps the momentum going, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, like once you're kind of in the thick of it, it's sink or swim, and you put yourself in that situation, and you just got to believe you'll figure it out. And I think that's where I am now.
Yes. So I think for the first part of the HUMN Project, you kind of focused on the United States before you left. Can you share maybe a couple of the stories of people that you met in the U.S.?
So I basically drove back and forth across the U.S. twice. And now again, I've left my job. I'm not making any money. So the plan was to sleep in my car along the way on that road trip across the U.S., just finding stories as I go. And I did sleep in the car, and I did find stories. So the best thing I did was or what got the most views. I don't know if it's the best, but it got the most views in the U.S. part is these real life superheroes, which once I dug into it is actually a much larger community than you would think. I would say a lot of cities in the U.S. have them, and it's a very U.S. specific thing. It's there's a couple in London or Paris, but aside from that, this is kind of something that's very specific to the United States. But there's these real life superheroes all over that they dress up in different costumes. They have different names, and they go out, and the main thing they do is actually incredible. They're really there to pass out supplies to the unhoused in their cities. So they make care packages. They're spending all their own money, and they're passing out supplies to the homeless that they walk by. They're in the costumes because they want to draw awareness to what they're doing. So maybe more people are inspired to donate or even get out there and help them. That's, I would say, 90% of what they do. The other 10% might, if they see a fight, they might try to step in and break it up. But obviously that's you don't walk into a fight all the time walking around the street. So that's very much less of it. So it was two different groups. Actually, there was a guy named Skyline who was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then a group named the Extreme Justice League who was in San Diego. And that was a couple people in San Diego. So I followed them around basically on a patrol a few different times as they were passing out supplies to the homeless in their costumes. And I interviewed them about that process as they were doing it. So
that's wild. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? The funny thing is, like, because some of those videos did so good, like really, really got a lot of views, surprisingly. I was getting superheroes from other cities messaging me to come to their cities and make videos. But at that point, I knew I was already going to Africa. So and I didn't want to get pigeonholed in as kind of the guy that makes videos about real life superheroes. Okay. Although in hindsight, it might have been the way to go. I might be in a different spot now. But so yeah, that stands out as something I did in the US. And then another one was, and this was in December. And I mean, I think I don't think I have much of an idea of what I'm doing overall now. Like, I'm still learning every day. But back in December, I was really still figuring out a lot of things out about the camera and how to properly interview people. But I got invited, I got myself to go to an ayahuasca retreat. There was a group from San Diego, but they were doing it they do it in Utah. Okay. They rent out an old polygamous house. So it was like this giant house, probably had like 50 rooms in it for all the different kids when they lived there. But they run an ayahuasca retreat in this house for the weekend. So I got kind of full access to be in this house with them, filming it as they were in the ceremony, as they were kind of coming out of the high the next day. I did interviews with about 6 or 7 of them about why they're there. And it was these really like serious topics, as you could imagine, why someone would go to an ayahuasca retreat, like sexual abuse in the family or by a priest or abusiveness in some other ways. And yeah, it was incredible. And I don't know if I did it justice with my video, which was kind of the issue I had. Like I just wasn't probably ready for that level of, not the seriousness of it, but kind of the expertise that was needed to make a proper video out of that ceremony. But it was really cool to get that type of access. And I would say one of my favorite things about the camera gives you access to things you wouldn't get any other way without the camera. Kind of people let you in a way, and let you kind of be a fly on the wall that I don't think you can get just being there without the camera. So it's been really cool to just have those experiences because I'm holding the camera now.
Man, it's so cool. And I love that you're doing this. Like you're kind of like experiencing life with these people for a little while. Like the superhero thing is hysterical. Like that's, I mean, not just this, it's awesome. I'd love to know more about what makes somebody want to be.
Oh, they put a lot of like, honestly, some people give them a hard time because they're in costume, but they're not making a lot of money and they're putting a lot of money they have into these care packages for the homeless. So they're doing some incredible stuff in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm just curious, like when you kind of think about like just your life leading up to the HUMN Project, what were some of the things that inspired you? I mean, obviously you caught this bug when you're on the bike trip, like this joy for adventure, but you know, there's a lot of different ways you could have taken that, and you chose to seek out stories and seek out places. And I'm just curious kind of where that all came from.
So again, I think growing up, I remember having I loved watching the Vice media stuff and these guys going to very foreign, exotic places and kind of getting in the nitty gritty with a community or group of people and almost like becoming part of that community or group in these obscure places. And so that was always somewhere in my head. And the bike trip, obviously from the bike trip, I have this desire to explore, and I'm comfortable being outside normal cities. I'm comfortable being on my own kind of in the wild per se. So it was trying to merge this love for extreme adventure with a way to kind of set up my future around it and hopefully make money one day and run it as a business. So it was that piece of it, a desire to want to see not just like the touristy spots of cities, but get in with the people on the ground, kind of doing exciting, exotic, interesting things and be able to kind of tell those stories in other countries. So I think all that combined is what probably led to me really wanting to do it.
Yeah. And again, big idea, jumping in, figuring it out. Like, so the next step is you go to Africa. Like, tell us what's happened in Africa and where you've been and who you've talked to.
Yeah, there's been some incredible stuff in Africa. It's been different and it's presented its own challenges aside from the language. But like in the US, for example, every story I got was a lot of the stories I was able to reach out online. That was my main way of doing it. It's a little harder, I think, in Africa to get in touch with everyone I want to online. So sometimes you just walk around and try to find stories, but it doesn't always work out. And you do spend a bit of time kind of hoping you'll find someone you don't. But there's been a couple amazing things in Africa. The first one that comes to mind, and I will say, like, when I set out on this journey, my thought was I would be doing more stuff like the real life superheroes. That's kind of fun. Has a good side to it, but is at the end of the day, like just a kind of a fun, quirky story to talk about. Yeah. In Africa, it's definitely gotten a little more serious just because that's what's able to get access to more easily, the NGOs that are doing work here specifically. So in Tanzania, there's a group that helps rural girls from rural areas of Tanzania that have run away from home because for two reasons. One, they're either getting arranged marriage at an age probably between 10 to 15, or two, they're going through something called female genital mutilation, and they're trying to run away from that. So I was able to get access to this group. I interviewed a couple of the girls and heard their story about why they ran away. And I also kind of talked to the woman that runs the whole thing. But it was intense. I mean, these girls were all probably between the ages of 13 to 15, and they all had kids that were ages 2 to 6. And that's from kind of these arranged marriages they were put into. And the way an arranged marriage works there is you pay in cows usually, actually, not cash. So the going price, I think I heard, was about 20 to 30 cows. So a guy in the village, if the father needed cows, or if the guy in the village wanted to buy his wife, he would go to the father. They'd agree on a price in cows, and either he'd pay those cows all at once for the daughter, or they kind of set up an installment plan of the cows, honestly, over maybe a 5 to 10 year period, and they'd pay the cows to the father, and then the girl would be married off. But the thing is, like, FGM, the cutting, is such ingrained in some of these like rural cultures in East Africa. First of all, they think that there's probably over 200 million women alive today that have gone through FGM. Wow. But it's so ingrained in the culture that it's hard. It's not like even though it's illegal, and even though it's just not something that changes overnight. So, like, for example, a lot of the girls actually, and this is becoming less and less as phones become more available and kind of information's more easily accessible, but a lot of the girls want to go through the cutting process because they believe that makes them like eligible to be a good bride. And that they think that if they don't get cut, then they're not going to be a good wife when they get married off. So it's this group, and they're trying to kind of educate the girls that, hey, like, you're hurting yourself by going through FGM. Like, you don't need to be doing that. They're trying to work with the women that do the cutting, which is usually an older woman in the rural community. They're trying to show these women that, like, look how much you're hurting these girls. Not only are you doing the cutting with no anesthesia, and sometimes that kills them themselves right then and there, but long term, there's a lot of issues because, like, during childbirth, there's whole complications down there now with the expansion, and like it causes long term effects. So they're trying to educate the cutters and the older people in the community that what they're doing is wrong. But it doesn't change overnight. Now, like, a lot of times, what they'll do is they'll cut the girls right, like kind of like how they do for boys, like in the U.S. that go through circumcision right when they're babies, where they used to. They were older girls, because now the girls are becoming more knowledgeable of it. So that was a very serious story I did. I interviewed, there was a guy named Hamizi I met, he's an albino living kind of on the border of Kenya and Tanzania. And in that area, more so on the Tanzania side, but they'll come into Kenya, is they believe albinos kind of are like, if they chop off their arms and fingers and legs, they can sell them for money, or they believe that it will, like, a lot of times around election season, they'll try to abduct and cut albinos' hands off because they think it will help the politician they like have better chances of winning. So I talked to an albino about kind of what he lives with on a day-to-day, the dangers of it, and just his story, and kind of this group he started to help other albinos in the community. And also, they really struggle in this area to get, like, there's no dermatologist, right? Mm-hmm. There's no eye doctor, because a lot of times they're dealing with eye issues. Like, there's no way for them to get the same kind of, like, they need to have their skin checked out because they're living in Africa as albinos, and there's just not good access to that. So it was a conversation kind of about those things. So there's been a lot of incredible groups. The other one, I think one more that sticks out is I've done a couple skateboarding groups. I just did one here in Kampala. This is a little less serious, at least, but they were skating in Kitsezi, it's called. It's a neighborhood outside of Kampala. They had this kind of really small skate park, but everyone in this village loved skating. And it was a little skate park next to a garbage dump that is now shut down. But they love skating so much, and this group actually came in and built them a nice big new skate park, and now it's got, like, there's over 250 kids going to the skate park every day in this village. They're using it to kind of teach the kids about climate change and keep them off the streets. So that was a little less of a serious one, but just an incredible organization that I got in touch with and was able to speak with out here.
It's so cool, man. I'm just listening to you and what you're doing. I mean, it's so powerful. You're bringing awareness to a lot of issues, right? And I mean, in the society that we live in, we're connected now, but, like, people, like, I mean, you taught me some stuff today that I'd not known before. And so, just by virtue of having this conversation, and of course, we're going to share it with the people that listen, you're bringing real awareness. But the other thing is that I just know from having had conversations with other people, like, what has it been like for you to give the opportunity to those people to tell their story, and not necessarily from like the broader awareness of who listens, but I feel like the people themselves, what you're doing helps them feel heard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I would like, it's actually surprised me how open to the idea of being interviewed people are. Like, if someone, like, they're always seem to be pretty grateful when I do it. Even if I don't think the video is good, like, they love it. Like, they're getting to tell their story, I think, in a new way. And they're excited to do so. And they're excited to share it with an audience that isn't their local community. And I think overall, like, it's just been well received, which has been, it's been great for me, but it's also just been nice because I expected maybe more pushback, like, this white guy's coming to my village and he wants to interview me, but it hasn't been like that at all for the most part. People are they want to do it. They're open to the idea and they just want to share their story. And so it's been awesome.
So I don't like, you might need to correct me here if I explain this wrong, but just like having heard your whole story, my sense is that you're not necessarily looking for any particular type of story, or, this isn't like about any sort of activism, but it's like you're just looking for stories, but these really powerful, like, stories that do need to be heard are kind of finding you.
I think it's a person that has some kind of incredible background or story to tell, or a community or group. Some of them are serious and deep, like the girls I talked about that have run away. But also I do enjoy the lighter hearted, quirky stories as well. And I maybe at some point I have to pigeonhole myself into one channel or the other, but for now I'm trying to keep HUMN Project as kind of this place where all different stories from all different corners of the earth, all different walks of life, can be told. So that was kind of the goal when I set out, was to cast a wide net on purpose. And I'm keeping to that for now.
I'm just curious, is there like a part of you, this is like a heart question. Is there a part of you deep inside that's like really calling you to do this work? I think maybe it's that part of me is growing as I get further into it, because when I set out, I had no idea I'd be doing kind of serious things. And as I've done more and more serious stories, I found myself like, it's nice to share those stories. It's nice to give those people a platform to talk about it. It's nice to work with those organizations and kind of share those stories. So I think that while that part of me wasn't there initially when I set out, it's definitely growing as I've gotten further into doing HUMN Project. Do you feel like there's a part of you that's seeking like purpose?
I think I just, like, if I think back to my time when I was at PwC, while it was like an incredible place to work, I got no validation out of doing that type of work. And it just didn't feel like I understood the purpose of the company. I understand it's necessary work that needed to be done, but it didn't give me kind of like a strong purpose. Mm-hmm. While with this, even if I tell this, like, if I share someone's story and one new person hears about it, that's one more person that's now aware that FGM is happening in rural areas of Africa. Or one more person that hears that, you know what, you can dress up as a superhero and hand out food to the homeless, and that helps them a lot. So I think I'm able to find, because if you start to think about it like, oh, I'm not actually changing anything with these stories, like, it's just people are looking at the videos and nothing's changing, you start to kind of go down a bad rabbit hole, in my opinion, and you lose motivation. But if you can think about it as, you know what, every time I tell a story, I think at least one person is learning something new and finding out about something new in the world that's happening. And that matters. And that is how I kind of look at it now.
Well, let me just say, like, what you're doing matters. Like, I'm so inspired by what you're doing, and I think people that listen to this podcast are going to feel it. Like, this is such awesome work that you're doing. It feels very mission focused. It feels very purposeful. But at the same time, like, listening to your story, I think this is something that I want. Like, I heard loud and clear, and I want people listening to hear, is that it's almost like you just are following this passion for adventure. Like, you just have this bug. You like want to travel. You want to go tell stories. You don't necessarily know what story. You're not like seeking a particular kind of story. They're just sort of finding you. But I think what I'm seeing and I'm hearing is somebody that was willing to just sort of jump in and honestly let purpose find them, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, purpose is finding you. You're kind of like experiencing things along the way, and you're discovering yourselves of things about yourself. At least that's what I'm seeing. And I just think that's really awesome. And I just think it gives people hope. And it's just this reminder to, like, you know, if you feel this call to adventure, like, just dive in and see you never know what's going to happen. But, like, you know, if you're following that voice inside that calls you to adventure, amazing things are going to happen. That's what I'm seeing with you. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I agree. Like, I think it goes back to the point you just at some point, if you believe in something enough, and it's cliche to say, but there's never a perfect time to do something. If you're just always waiting for that perfect time to jump and go for it, you're never going to end up doing it. So you kind of set a date, you prepare, and at some point you just go, and you have to believe that one way or another, you're going to figure it out, and it's never going to be what you think, but you're going to figure it out one way or another. And I think that's how I've kind of gotten to this point.
How can people, first of all, see and like participate in what you're doing, like social media? Like, what's the platform? Like, how can people see and watch the stories that you're sharing?
Yeah, the best one would be the Instagram. It's HUMN_project on Instagram. So, and human is spelled HUMN. We took out the A. So HUMN_project. Instagram would be the best place to start.
And tell us about the videos. They're kind of short form, yeah?
Yeah, we're going 30 to 60 second mini documentaries. Like, it might be a one-off story with just one video. It could be a series of videos about that community that I worked with. But you're looking at videos in that 30 to 60 second range. Hopefully we'll get back to the reason I'm sending people to Instagram is because that's the main. I'm focused on those shorter form videos right now. I think one day I will get back, or when I'm able to build this out more, someone will get back to posting longer form documentaries under the HUMN brand. But that kind of part of HUMN Project is on hold for now. Okay.
So I'm maybe going to regret asking this question, but because you've said, like, I've got this big idea, I'm going to jump in and figure it out. So maybe that's the answer, but is there a like kind of longer term vision or plan for the HUMN Project?
Yeah, I want it. Like, look, I enjoy being on the road. It's what I wanted for now. I don't want to be living city to city everywhere forever. The one thing I think I've learned is that in some senses, stability is nice, having that, and even more than that, that kind of your community is incredible to have. And like, when you just don't have that right now with the way I'm living, where you can have a kind of a constant community. So that's a sacrifice. And I do hope to get back to that one day. So the vision I have for HUMN Project is, for now, it's on me to tell the stories, but I want to grow it into a thing where there's people kind of going all around the world telling these similar stories, and HUMN Project is kind of set up for one spot. And I'm either sending people kind of on longer missions to tell the stories, or I'm going kind of to I have a definitive plan, and I go somewhere for 5 days or something to tell a certain story. And then I come back to a home base, and I want it to be a proper company with a real headquarters and people kind of that work for the company telling stories all around the world. And I'm kind of at the helm, helping pick what those stories are. So that is the hopeful ultimate goal for HUMN Project.
Man, I love it. You've got passion behind you, so I know you're going to figure it out. It's so awesome. Are there ways that people can help?
Just watch the videos. Okay. Just watch the videos, follow along, give us engagement. I think that's the best thing for now.
Love it. So Jack, like you've done a lot of epic things. I mean, the bike ride across from London to Singapore, now you're in Africa, you've created this amazing thing that's just going to continue to grow. Like at some point, Hollywood's going to pick up on this and they're going to want to make a movie about your life. And when they do, I want to know who's going to be the Hollywood actor that's going to play you in your movie.
So I think it's got to be someone adventurous. Now I think that maybe takes out some Hollywood people. Now there was a guy on TV that is very adventurous, and I think I would choose him. Bear Grylls.
Yeah, I love him.
I think he can figure out the acting part. He's got the adventure stuff down for sure.
I love him. He's one of my favorites. He does so many cool things.
Yeah.
Great one. What's your movie going to be called?
I think it's got to be something like, what's the whole theme kind of for what I've said is at some point you just got to jump it and go for it. So let's go with just go for it.
Go for it. I love it. Oh my gosh, Jack, this has been so much fun. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for the time that we had today together and for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope Jack's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening, Jack. Thank you so much for being here.
That was awesome. Thank you for having me on, Scott.